Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Hand Does the Talking. This is episode 7. I'm your host, Marshall Ellis, with my co-host,
DJ Schubert.
And today we're joined by our guest, Sammy Santiago.
Hello, everyone.
This is the third interview we've done on this series, and we're really excited to have Sammy. He's a special friend of TJ's, and we can't wait to have him tell you his story and just talk about some fun things that he's done in his career. With that, I'm going to open the floor up to TJ to ask the first question because I think good friends should always ask first.
Yes. Sammy, can you give us the history of how you got into this wonderful form of art, puppetry?
Well, since I was a kid, I was always interested in Sesame Street. And because I'm Puerto Rican, I also grew up with Plaza Sésamo. So I was introduced to Sesame Street really early on, like most people. Didn't really grow up with the Muppets. I grew up with the original Muppet Babies, but not the Muppets per se. And then when I was around 12 years old, I decided that I wanted to play with puppets and make puppets and have my own puppet characters. And that's when I started exploring this wonderful world of puppetry and Jim Henson and madness and awesome stuff. Hopefully that answered your question, unless you want more details.
What was your first puppet, Sammy?
Well, my very first puppet that I made or that I got as a kid, which one do you want to know?
Both.
I think the very first puppet I ever got as a kid was a Cookie Monster puppet. In the early 2000s, they made a Cookie Monster plush puppet. It was like a full body plush, but you could put your hand on the back and you can puppeteer him. And then the mouth was kind of mechanical. So every time you opened the mouth, it would make like Cookie Monster noises. So I think that was my very first puppet ever. But the very first puppet that I ever kind of created was a Melissa and Doug puppet. They had this purple puppet, create your own monster. And I took that puppet and customized it a lot and turned it into my own character named Tread Luna, which I still use that character. Not the original puppet, but I have rebuilt the character since then. And the very first puppet that I ever built from scratch was a character called Tom the Ghost. And I made him out of an old t-shirt. And he had googly eyes and he was supposed to be a ghost to scare my brothers, and it didn't work. Apparently puppets are not scary. At least my puppets are not scary to them. So those are my early puppets. Yeah.
So you built the first puppet and obviously have rebuilt it since then. How many iterations do you think you've gone through on your bread and butter puppets?
With Tread, the original Tread, which is the Melissa and Doug puppet, and then in high school I rebuilt him for a short film that is still up on YouTube if you want to watch it. And then last year, during the panorama, I rebuilt Tread again. So I've gone through 3 Tread puppets. And then I have my core main characters like Greg the Lizard. I rebuilt a lot of my main characters last year because during the pandemonium, we had a lot of free time. So I rebuilt most of my original characters. Greg the Lizard, I think I built 3 of them. I mean, there's been 4 Gregs because I built 2 Gregs when I first created him. Then I created a third one, and the Greg that I have now will be Greg number 4. And then there's Buddy. I rebuilt him, Buddy the Frog. He's very popular on TikTok. And a bunch of my characters I have to rebuild. So there's at least 2 or 3 versions of my characters so far out there. Well, in my storage unit, at least.
What do you do with the puppets primarily? Is it like YouTube stuff, or are you making like puppet shows for live audiences?
So when I first started making puppets, it was for YouTube. That's how I got started on YouTube, and then early on, I started doing live puppet shows with my neighbor Taylor Ellis at the time when I used to live in Georgia, but I don't do that anymore. So mainly the puppets that I use right now are for videos, for mainly TikTok right now, because my puppets are not showing up that much on YouTube anymore. So my puppets are just chilling on TikTok, living their best life. Eventually, I want to get some videos out on YouTube with my puppets, but I just feel that I don't know, YouTube is kind of like dying, at least for like creativity. YouTube is dying. Like all the creative people are going to TikTok or Instagram, but it's just not the same. Like when I started YouTube in 2009, and back then it was like this amazing place where you can discover other people and they have talents. And oh my God, this other person makes puppets too. Oh my God, look at this replica and this and that. And nowadays, you discover puppeteers on Instagram, you discover them on TikTok. Like, you don't really discover them on YouTube anymore. Like, I feel like YouTube is more for like tutorials or more detailed stories, but yeah, eventually I want to do more stuff with my characters, but I don't know what that is. So mainly social media. My puppets are social media right now.
Well, do you have anything developing for anything other than short form? Are you like working on that, or is it just like an aspiration you have for later on at some point?
I think it's gonna be at some point. Right now, I don't have any like groundwork. The only thing that I had in the back of my mind for, oh my God, for years now, for like 6 years now, I always wanted to have my own type of TV show with Tread, because I developed this whole TV series with Tread, because my character Tread, he has a wife named Julie, and he works at this large company, and I developed a whole entire idea around Tread, but I don't know whenever that will, come out. So far, it's just social media as for now.
Sammy, you don't just make puppets, you make a lot of other cool stuff like stuffed animals and costumes and
Yeah.
shirts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite thing to work on? You work on so many wonderful stuff. What's your favorite thing to work on?
Well, right now, my favorite thing to work on are face masks, because we love them or hate them. You have to use them everywhere here in the United States. So right now, I'm having fun making face masks, but something that is not puppet related, I love making bow ties. I love making bow ties, and the thing is that bow ties are so simple to make, and I think it's ridiculous that you go to, like, let's say you go to Kohl's or you go to Burlington, you go to a clothing store, and they sell bow ties for like 20, 30, $40. And I'm like, that's too expensive. Like, bow ties don't cost that much to make. So I love making bow ties. When I used to be in a band, whenever we had a concert, I will always make the bow ties for all the guys. And yeah, I love making bow ties. Other than puppets, bow ties are my favorite thing to make. And I don't really like making pants, because pants can be complicated sometimes if you don't know what you're doing. So yeah, bow ties, I love them.
I'm on your Instagram right now and I'm looking at the Easter Bunny suit. Do
Oh,
you make a lot of suits at all, or is that just the Easter Bunny you make?
I love making mascot costumes. I love it. So that the character you're talking about, he is my Easter Bunny character named Saul Azul. I created him in 2013. Wow, a long time ago. And I love him. Like, I've been trying to rebuild him for like almost every year. And this year I wanted to rebuild him and make him bigger and better. That's, life happens. I get busy with other things, so I don't have enough money or the right resources to make them. And Saul Azul has a girlfriend named Millie, so it's Mr. and Mrs. Easter Bunny, Saul and Millie. And I've been trying to rebuild them for a long time, but every year something happens. Something happens where I can't do it. But I love making mascot costumes. I love those things. And I actually, other than Tread's little imaginary TV show, I I always wanted to do something with my mascot characters. Like I have the Easter bunnies, Saul and Millie, and I have other characters like there's a sheep, there's a baby chick, and a bunch of other characters. So I always wanted to make something with my costume characters, something like banana splits or something like that.
Sweet. You've been making replicas your pretty much your whole life. And what you started off on YouTube making replicas of Fozzie Bear, Ernie, and even Big Bird.
Yes.
That's crazy to make a Big Bird. At the time there's not a lot of tutorials or tips how to make these
Nope.
replicas. How do you create these replicas without people telling you how you should make it?
Well, I feel that I come from a very special time period on YouTube puppetry because at the time there wasn't many puppeteering tutorials out there. Like nowadays, we have Adam Kruinger and we have all these other people that make wonderful tutorials and helpful tips. And a lot of these things I had to find out by trial and error. When I started puppetry, I don't want to say I was poor, but I was very humble. So I couldn't just go to Project Puppet and buy their patterns, or I had to create a lot of things by myself. And I just, I don't know, like people ask me that, and I don't know how to describe it. Like the best way I can describe it is like a gift. Like I can see something and I can kind of see like the way it was constructed, the right shape, and what do I need to create that character. And that's kind of how I got started. But it's mainly trial and error and doing what works for you, because you might be building a character and you might think, oh, this character has this, but if you don't feel you should add it to your replica or to your build, then don't add it. Make it your own. I think that's the key. It's just make whatever you're building your own. And yeah, I was one of the first people to build a Big Bird. I think before me there was two other puppeteers that made a Big Bird. I think one of them was Phil Fletcher and Jared Boucher. And I always wanted to build a Big Bird because Big Bird is one of my favorite Sesame Street characters. And I was 15 years old and I made a Big Bird with a budget about $120. Oh my God. Looking back at it, I'm like, how on earth did I do that? And I went to the dollar store and I bought about 23 yellow feather dusters because they use turkey feathers for those dusters. So I just went over and bought like 23 22 or 25, something like that, feather dusters, and then went home and detached them one by one and then classified them with, oh, these are good feathers. Oh no, these are bad feathers. And then glued them individually. And looking back at my Big Bird is impressive, but it definitely, needs improvement. And there's been other people that created Big Birds since then, and it's amazing. This is a little bit off topic, but in the back of my head, I wanted to build another Big Bird, but I didn't want to do Big Bird. I wanted to do something else because Keelan already did Big Bird, and I don't want to steal his thunder. So I wanted to build Abelardo because TJ, you know that I kind of make fun of Abelardo whenever we get together and talk.
Yeah.
And TJ, there is a Mexican costume company that made Abelardo. I found it on TikTok. Yeah, I sent the link to Keelan. I don't know if I sent it to you, but when I saw it, I'm like, oh, this guy beat me to it. But the thing is, I'm sorry, I'll send it to you after we record this. But the thing is that the Abelardo puppet looks amazing, but the puppetry is horrible.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's really impressive with building a puppet like that, especially such a big puppet, not only in name, but in size. It's really impressive. And for someone like me, I don't like building replicas just because I'm afraid I'll make it look so awful and then I won't be happy with the final product. But I've seen some of the work that you've done in replicas and you do a great job.
Thank you.
Prairie Dawn is one that you built, correct? Or was that?
Yes. Prairie. Yeah.
Yeah, that one looks screen accurate, exactly like how I remember her as a kid. So that's just really impressive. Is is building puppetry the only thing that you've like done in this form? Um, and by that I kind of mean like, have you only done like internet postings? Have you worked with anybody else before or anything like that?
Thank you for the compliments on Prairie. I had a lot of fun building Prairie Dawn, and I just loved the way that she came out. And I definitely gave her my own personality to Prairie. You can ask TJ that. And the thing is, with that Prairie puppet, I actually gave that puppet to my mom because I realized that my mom doesn't have a puppet made by her son. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna give Prairie to my mom. But I am actually in the process. Well, I'm planning on building another Prairie because maybe in the future we're gonna do another quarantine pageant. I don't know, but we want Prairie, so I'm working on building another Prairie Dawn, and I have the original pattern, so she's gonna look as awesome as the one that I made last year. But as for puppetry, I haven't done much professional puppetry out there. The only like professional puppetry that I ever done was when I used to volunteer at a children's hospital in Fort Worth, Texas. I was there for about 3 years, something like that. And we had a baby dragon character named Cooper. I didn't perform Cooper, and my good friend Melody Lentz performed her. And Cooper was built by another puppet company. I believe they're called Twistle Down Puppets, Tinsel Down Puppets, something like that. And at one point, the people from the studio wanted Cooper to have a sister, so I built Cooper a sister named Candy, and I performed Candy briefly, and then the studio got into a little, I don't know, disagreements, and I was let go, or I left before they let me go. But that's so far like the professional puppetry that I ever had. And when working with Cooper and Candy, we had to be wearing green screen suits because we're in front of the green screen, and I'm wearing like, the more green screen suit. And that's the only professional puppetry I have done. Yeah. And, I just remember something. So last year I auditioned to be a puppeteer at Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights, because at the time I was working for Universal and they were having auditions for puppeteers, and I auditioned and I made it to the very, very last round. Yes, because when you go audition for a theme park, whether it's a performer or a puppeteering, those auditions are very intense. So I made it as a puppeteer to the very last round. They were doing the auditions virtually because, what's going on. But unfortunately, I didn't get picked, not because I wasn't good, just because they canceled Halloween Horror Nights last year. So imagine if they didn't cancel Halloween Horror Nights, I would have been a puppeteer at Universal Studios. But hey, what are you going to do?
That is so cool. Man,
Yeah.
you never told me that, Sammy. What the heck, man?
I, I, I thought I told you that.
I don't remember that.
And it's got to be a kick in the pants, though. But also, that's sort of something you can say congratulations to, because you made it. And maybe next time they'll recognize you and go, "Hey, this is that guy we were definitely going to hire, but we had to cancel Halloween Horror Nights." So, who knows? All right, everybody, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor, Anchor. And welcome back. We are with our guest, Sammy, and my co-host, TJ, and we're going to keep talking to him about his career in puppetry and his career puppetry adjacent. Sammy, one question I have is, did you go to Disney at first to become a puppeteer with Disney, or was there another interest beforehand?
With Disney, I always wanted to be a performer. but I quickly realized that I don't have what it takes to become a performer at Disney, like to perform at the castle shows or the parades or stuff like that. Unfortunately, there's people that are far better than me, so I'm like, yeah, that's not for me. But Disney does have puppetry, but unfortunately, because of what's going on around the world, and the theme parks kind of have to reduce their shows. They're not really doing puppetry anymore, so I'm kind of just waiting to see what happens, if that will ever open back up again. But one day, hopefully. But as for now, I'm just happy doing what I'm doing over there. I work in food and beverage, so I'm just happy doing that. I love it.
So you earlier said that you haven't had a whole lot of experience on like set work for puppetry. Is that something that you think you'd also want to pursue later on, or is that something that you kind of have been turned off from as a career point?
As a career, as of right now, I'm not really looking for that right now. Like, I'm not hunting down, oh, who needs a puppeteer or what can I jump in. I'm just kind of going with the flow with things right now, especially because I feel the thing is about puppetry and working in the television industry and movie industry, just in the entertainment industry in general. Most puppeteers are professional actors, or they have been professional actors beforehand. Is kind of never the other way around. It's not like you started as a puppeteer, then you became an actor. It's always like you're an actor first, then you became a puppeteer. And in the acting community, because puppetry is kind of looked at as acting, acting is very competitive and can be very toxic sometimes. So I'm not really in that air. I'm not looking for that, excuse me, in a career right now. It's something, if I were to be at the right time, right place type of thing, then yeah, I'll absolutely do it. But right now I'm not looking forward to it. Again, I'm just going with the flow of things. And even though I don't have much experience in the industry, I do know a little bit about it. And I do know that most puppeteers, they get the job word from mouth, or, uh, you know, oh, did you hear that, Sammy? Oh, yeah, he's a puppeteer. We should bring him in, that type of deal. It's not like I go to an audition. And even if I do go to a puppeteering audition, obviously my skills will speak for themselves when there's actors that never held a puppet before and they're trying to manipulate it or operate it. You give me a puppet and I make it come alive. So as of right now, I'm not really looking for that as a career. But if that were to happen to me by some miracle, I wouldn't say no. I'll do it.
Awesome. My next question: some people label themselves as a performer or a builder or in the middle. What do you claim yourself as? 'Cause you're so talented at the building and the performance. Are you in the middle or?
Um, I like to consider myself a lunatic. I don't know. There's something wrong with me. I don't. I'm definitely not normal. I do enjoy puppet building, and I also enjoy performing, because when I perform, something that I discovered about myself, especially when I started rebuilding all my characters last year, is that I have this potential inside of me. Like I mentioned earlier, I could act. I am an actor, even though I'm not acting with my face, I'm acting with my hand and this puppet and the voice. And that's how I act. And I'm very good at it. So I like, I like to take what's best from both worlds, because I love building puppets, and I also love performing, because performing is so much fun. And TJ, you know this, that whenever we talk with each other and with Keelan and we just put on a puppet, oh my God, and we just have a blast. So
We do have a blast a lot.
yes, so I like to consider myself both. because again, I love building puppets. I love, handcrafting them and creating something. But I also love performing because you're taking this thing and you're making it come alive and you're making it have a personality. And my favorite part about performing is whenever Keelan and Casey and you, TJ, were all talking together, my favorite part is when I'm doing a character and I make you guys laugh, especially Keelan, because I will say something and you can just hear Keelan break character just busting out laughing, and that's my favorite part. So I love both.
Sweet. My next question, what is the hardest character or costume you ever made in your career?
Ooh, hardest character that I've ever or costume. Um, I can answer both questions. I'm gonna answer the costume first. So the hardest costume that I ever made was I have a sculptor friend. He's an amazing sculptor. He has worked in Hollywood and stuff like that. And he was making a Mickey Mouse statue, like a posable Mickey Mouse figurine, about yay high, not that big. And he asked me to make clothes for Mickey, for his Mickey. And let me tell you, when you sew clothes, when you're making clothes, the hardest clothes to make is anything small. Like if you're making clothes for a baby, that is difficult. And I needed to make a full-on three-piece tuxedo for him. And Mickey's pants were really simple to do. The pants were easy. The vest I was able to make. But man, Mickey's jacket, making, something that detailed small was a pain in the behind. But I managed to do it. And there's a funny story about that is when I finished the costume for the sculptor, that was a few days before I left for Tokyo Disneyland. This is back in 2019. And I was flying to Japan to go to Tokyo Disney. But before that trip, I wanted to make sure that his commission was out in the mail. And because, so I go about my trip and I'm waiting to get an email from him like, hey, I got the package. Hey, awesome job. Throughout the whole trip, I didn't hear from him. I come back to the United States and I email him and I say, hey, I just got back from my trip. I just wanted to know, I noticed you got the package. Was everything okay? Did you like it? Because I was really nervous about making this and kind of insecure about my skills. He emails me back and he says, for some reason, he calls me Santiago. Like he doesn't call me Sammy. He just calls me Santiago. He goes, Santiago, I've worked in Hollywood and I've worked with this many people and blah, 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 blah. But your work is the best that I've ever seen. And when he said that, I was just like, I couldn't believe it. And it just goes to show that when you put your heart and soul into something and you don't back down from a challenge and you practice and you try to make it as good as possible, it does pay off. And I'm good friends with that sculptor and I still make costumes for him. Like right now I'm working on a Wicked Witch of the West costume for him because he's making like a life-size sculpture of the Wicked Witch. And guess who's making her outfit? This guy. So the hardest costume I ever made was like a miniature Mickey Mouse outfit. I just made like the jacket, the pants, and the vest. And the hardest puppet that I ever made, it has to be Kate Monster, because when you're making replicas, obviously they will never turn out like the original because the original's the original, and you're making a copy of it. But Kate Monster is one of the hardest characters to replicate. And if you just look up on Google Kate Monster replica, you'll see there's a lot of ugly Kates out there. There's a lot of ugly Kates.
There's one in my room right now. So
you know what I mean. So Kate is a very difficult character to replicate. So being able to replicate Kate make her look like the original, but also give her my own style was definitely a challenge. So I think that she was the hardest character I ever worked with because I know that she's a tough character to replicate. So I'm like, oh my goodness, I had to make Kate my own in order for her to look good. I just couldn't go off the original. I had to adopt Kate, take her home, make her my own. So she'll turn out good.
Are you working on any projects right now? Like any puppets you're working on? I know you're working on a Fozzie Bear. Is that still working on?
Yes, I have a few puppets that I'm working on right now. So I am working on a simplified Fozzie Bear. It's not a full Fozzie Bear replica. It's a simplified version of Fozzie. We might, because there might be a Muppet Sumco in the future. I don't know. I'm also working on a Robin replica. I just actually before joining the stream, I dyed the sleeves for Robin, and I'm also working. I'm planning on building a lint monster puppet for Keelan. So I'm waiting to like buy the first so I can start making lint monster. And I'm working on a blue, red, and yellow monster. So yeah, that's currently what I have right now scheduled, like simplified Fosse, Robin, lint monster, red, yellow, blue monster. So
Gotcha. And maybe a
That is
Spike in the future thrown on a
oh,
list.
definitely. Yeah. Whenever we get to that bridge, I'll be working on spikes. Yeah. It'll
Spikes,
be,
multiple spikes.
yeah.
Be like Gremlins, but would be
Yeah.
with spikes.
My sewing room will become a sweatshop for spikes.
Yep.
that's a lot of work. I'm building two, and for my sister's birthday, which was yesterday, I had like 4 days to build her an Edward puppet from Full Metal Alchemist. And I haven't watched that show in years. I didn't know if I had any of the materials, but I had exactly what I needed to build it, and I built it in 4 days, and it looks great. But I just got so stressed out because I've got two other puppets I'm already working on. So your number to me is just like stress inducing, but that's awesome that you can put so much work into so many puppets in a short span of time.
Yeah.
What's like the biggest person that you've worked for? Is there any like really popular puppeteers, or has it kind of just been like kind of low profile cool guys?
That guy from Hollywood is a low profile cool guy because again he made sculptures and props for Hollywood. He even owns a Batmobile. That's how cool he is. He's not like an A-list star or anything, but you know he's one of those people you never hear from in Hollywood. So he's low key very very cool. I haven't really done any work with anyone like that popular. I consider you guys popular, so I consider my friends to be popular people. Like, I'm not
Sweet.
really yeah. I'm not saying that because I'm on your, you're interviewing me. I'm just saying it because I mean it. Because first, I'm not really a celebrity person. I don't just go like, oh my god, it's a celebrity. No, I'm not that. The people that I hang around with, to me, they are celebrities. They're characters in my TV show. So to me, working with anyone that I vibe with and have fun, to me is, you know, very cool, whether they're super famous or not. So yeah.
Sammy, I remember when I was getting into puppetry, I binge watched your videos and I like praised you pretty much because you were so awesome. And like your Big Bird and your Ernie videos and your saying goodbye. I think that was the first video I saw of yours where you had like a Gonzo in a box or whatever.
Oh my god,
And
that
now it's
stupid console in the box.
yeah. But and now I talk to you and we hang out and stuff.
Yeah.
Now we're working together with some stuff. But it's so cool that people that you look up to someday you might meet them or talk to them. What was like the biggest person that you looked up to and now you sort of talk to them in a normal basic?
There, and let me think. In puppetry, The thing is that nowadays, basically anyone has an Instagram or they have a TikTok, they have some sort of social media. So it's very easy to connect with them without really connecting to them. You guys know what I mean. But when I started out in puppetry, my biggest inspiration in terms of puppet building was Jared Boucher, the Australian puppet builder. To me, his work was just like the holy grail. And I was like, I want to be like that guy. And I follow him on social media. So I've never had like a conversation with him like I have with you guys. I've never really like messaged him or talked anything. But man, I love his work, and I was able to buy one of his puppets. A friend of mine got a puppet of his, and he was selling it. And I'm like, I'll buy it. I'll buy it. I don't care if I'm gonna go broke for 2 weeks. I'm gonna buy it. Um, and then I also, when I started puppetry, Phil Fletcher was really big with the Glovets. I noticed that he doesn't really use that name anymore, but when I got started back in the day, he had the Glovets, and now I kind of follow him on social media, and he's selling puppets now. Like, but he's teasing people because he's only selling puppets for people in the UK. And I told him, hey, buy one of your puppets, but you're not selling it outside the UK. And then he's like, oh, don't worry, I'm gonna put one on eBay for international shipping. I'm like, you better.
He said that with the frog. He said it's gonna be on eBay. I've been waiting 3 months now. Where's the frog? I know. It drives me insane.
Oh
You
my
guys gotta
god,
write a diss track on this guy. You gotta let him know it's good. You need this puppet in America. That's what you're telling him right now, huh?
Yeah.
Jeez.
But but yeah, and then all these other like Muppet people, there are excuse me, these other Muppet people that are Instagram, even though I don't talk to them directly, I just feel like I'm connected to them. One of them is definitely the Beretta brothers, Gene Beretta and Bill Beretta. My God, the podcast they have and the stuff they put out, I feel like I know them without actually, personally know them. So social media is great just to connect with people without really connecting to them. But I've been able to connect with a bunch of other people like you, TJ, and Keelan and Liam and a few others, and I just love it.
The community in puppetry is really pretty good generally. There's bad eggs in every community, and I'm not saying there's any bad eggs that I know of in our community, but puppetry is just such a really open format, and you can't do it wrong, which is, I think, a great thing. Like, nobody really goes up to people and like, wow, that puppet sucks. Like, nobody does that.
Let me correct you on something. I know what you're trying to say, and I agree with you. Because I personally believe is if you're having fun doing something, whether it's puppetry or whatever, then you're doing it right. But honey, I can tell you there is a wrong way of puppeteering. Again, I'm not gonna single any people out there, but there's some people that call themselves puppeteers, and I'm just like, really? Are you really? but yeah, and then there's some bad apples out there. Again, I'm not thinking of anyone in particular or calling anyone out. I'm not doing that. But there is some people that will be like, oh, this puppet's great, but the eye focus is bad. Oh, the tone is the wrong way. Oh, and I'm like, oh, shut up. We're supposed to have fun here. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, definitely. It's and like we both said, you can't really name names and think of people off the top of your head, and if you can, that's just personal beef. But I mean, the other than a few instances and people's personal opinions on others' work, puppetry is a really great community and open platform, and you can find great communities in puppetry and big names that we lower, like myself, less popular puppeteers look up to, are those people are much more attainable than someone in another format of entertainment, like a singer or a movie star. I couldn't text Ariana Grande and say, wow, that was awesome. But Adam Krutinger, he'll if he sees my comment, he'll make a comment back. And so that's just something I really enjoy about the community we have in puppetry. It's just, I feel like it's a little more accessible and fun, which is, I feel like, the point you were making earlier, Sammy.
Yeah. Just imagine if you can text Ariana Grande. But no, it's that we're all accessible, and people, message us and stuff like that. The only thing is that I've learned on Instagram not to reply to everyone. Hear me out. If you message me and you're nice about it, yeah, I'm gonna engage with you. I'm gonna talk back with you. But there's been not a lot of people, but a few, maybe like two or three that have messaged me, and the messages were very sketchy. And I'm like, I'm not gonna deal with you, especially if you have a blank profile. If you have a private account, I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna message you. And oh my God, there was this one person. Oh my goodness, this was like last year. There was this one person that messaged me, and he was like, "Hey, I really love your work. You're really talented." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you." Saying thank you. And then he says, "Well, can I make a suggestion?" And I'm like, "Yeah, go ahead, make a suggestion." I can take criticism, and I thought he was gonna criticize me on something. I'm like, I don't know. And he sends me two suggestions, and I will never forget them. The first one is like, "Oh, you should build a Barney costume." That was the first suggestion. The second suggestion was more specific. He sent me a link to one of those inflatable sumo wrestling suits, like the ones that you put on and it inflates and you're a sumo wrestler. So he sent me a link to one of those, but blue, like completely blue. And then he goes, "You should buy this and you should recreate the scene from Willy Wonka of the blueberry." And I was just like, I remember when I got these messages, I still remember I was in IKEA. I was in IKEA buying something, and I get these messages, and I'm just sitting there like, what on earth? Like, what the? And then the guy, I looked on his page. The guy's was like in his early 20s or something. So it wasn't some kid. It was like a grown person. So I'm reading this. I'm like, what on earth? And I told him, hey, I appreciate the suggestions, but hey, I'm not really into Barney. That's not really my thing. So I'm not gonna be building any Barney costumes anytime soon or ever. And second, why do you want me to recreate the scene from Willy Wonka where Violet turns into a blueberry? And then he goes, "Oh, because I just want to see you do it. Like, I just want to see it." I'm like, but I was like, I appreciate that, but, and I'm trying to be nice. Here's the thing. If you message me, I'm gonna be nice. I'm not gonna be like, "Hey, screw you." No, I'm gonna be nice. So I'm like, yeah, I appreciate that, but like, I don't do that. Like, I don't do that kind of stuff. Why not? That's not my thing. And then I think I blocked them or something, but I was just like, what on earth was that?
Wow. There's always something that happens, and yeah, that's pretty weird.
Yeah.
But I don't even know what to say for that. I'm glad I haven't had anything too crazy like that. I've had a few people try and get me to make a goofy video or something, but yeah, those people, you just gotta say, "Oh, thank you," and then like never message them back again, because
I don't really read them anymore. I just delete them. I probably get like 20 a day now, and I just delete them. Only
yeah.
people I talk to is just like Sammy and Keelan and like the close puppet friends, and that's it. Nobody else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
anybody out of like my general chat, I have like probably like 40 people like stocked up with messages in my general, like non-general chat.
Yeah.
So I just
crap.
haven't even I haven't even read those messages yet. Hey, there was one of those texts right there. TJ just got another text from a
I
crazy
know.
person.
There it is. Seriously, it is.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. Oh my gosh, that's kind of weird.
They're watching us.
Oh man. Ugh.
Well, other other than crazy things on Instagram, uh, the format we have here is pretty good, and I'm happy with that. I think the episode has been a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun. TJ, do you have any more questions for
I got
Sammy?
one more question for
Awesome.
Sammy. There's people watching that's getting into puppetry. Do you have any tips for them at all?
Think of why you're getting into puppetry. Because I feel that, again, I'm not criticizing anyone. I'm not talking about a particular person. This is just general observation that I've noticed. There is a difference between wanting to be a puppeteer and there's a difference between being a Muppet fan. And I noticed that a lot of people get both of them confused. You can be a Muppet fan and you can build replicas and have fun, but I'm not saying you're not a real puppeteer, but I'm just saying like there's a difference between a Muppet fan puppeteering and then somebody else puppeteering because they want that to be like a skill set or a career. So just make sure you know why you're puppeteering in the first place. There's nothing wrong with being a Muppet fan puppeteer. There's nothing wrong with that. But just saying there is a fine line between a fan and then somebody who wants to do it professionally. And if you are going to do it professionally, my biggest tip for you is practice and look up acting, because you're going to say, well, Sammy, I'm going to be puppeteering and I'm going to be acting. Trust me, you're going to be acting, and the things and methods that you're going to learn with a basic acting class, you don't even have to, go to a acting school. You can just look up acting videos on YouTube. Basically, the core principles of acting, you're going to be applying that to puppetry and to your performance. So if you're really seriously looking into puppetry, practice putting your hand up. Yes, your hand is going to hurt after 30 seconds, but that's part of the job. So practice putting your hand up and practice acting. I suggest practice acting with yourself, because if you can't act as yourself, how are you going to act with a puppet? So that is my tip for anyone listening to this.
That is very great advice, Sammy. I think that's great, because I've been doing some acting as just myself, and now I finally had the chance to act on stage with a puppet. I think with everybody knows what puppet I'm talking about. But I mean, that's fantastic advice, Sammy. It's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Marshall, anything else you have to say?
No, I think you put it perfectly, Sammy. That's awesome advice. I really do think that people should take that perspective in when starting any kind of career in anything, and maybe starting an interest. So thank you so much for those really well thought out words. And again, thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. I love that we're able to get so many different creators and performers on the show. And I can't wait to have you back on again sometime, talk about something else.
I can't wait. Thank you for having me, you guys. This been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, guys, this is episode 7 of The Hand Does the Talking. I'm your host, Marshall Ellis, with my co-host,
TJ Schubert.
Today we had Sammy on, and we're so thankful for having him on. And we will see you next week with something else. Thank you guys so much.